All right, guys, today's video is a fertilizing tactic that I like to employ, especially when it's in its first year or two of soil restoring. So what I did was come out here and put another light coating of fertilizer out. Very light, not 50 pounds, not 60 pounds. I come out here and put, I would say 10 pounds over the whole area, is about as even as I could get it. Maybe 12 pounds at the most. That's pushing it. So what I've done is I'm trying to time this to when it's time to till. So I still got 2 more weeks, or maybe a hair longer than that, before this right here is ready to be tilled down. And look at how tall and thick it is already, right? I mean, I'm with shoes on, I am a little over 6'2", or right at 6'2", and this stuff is definitely taller than me. So I'm already looking at cereal rye that's 6'6" to 6'8" range in several places. And this is year 1 of restoring. Never had returns like this in a first year. Over there, you can see it's not quite as high, but there's no fertilizer involved. So the plants over there are maturing a little bit slower than what these are over here. Eventually that over there will look like this. It's just going to take a little bit longer, and that's why when 2 weeks shows up, this will all pretty much even out and look really nice. But the reason I wanted to add fertilizer as another tactic for my soil restoring methods is I want you to think of it in terms of the how much biomass is growing here currently and how much fertility I can add to that biomass. So if I time it right, when the fertilizer fully kicks in, it'll be right around the time I'm ready to till this down. So all that little extra nutrients that I managed to sneak in here will be in this rotting biomass. So there's a thing they call the green manure effect. And what'll happen is, now this is just my method, but tilling and crimping are 2 different methods. So when I till, I'm going to break this up very, very badly. It's going to basically become a mulch effect. So when I do that, liquid is going to come out of these plants, whether it's clear, green, whatever, white sap, just depends on what species it is. That is the green manure effect going into my soil. So when I till this down, all this biomass is going to secrete a liquid into the soil. And then when it gets really warm and the sun's out all day, I can come out here the next day and see that the very top layer has dried out. But everything underneath is wet as it can be, and it can remain greener longer because the sun is not getting to it. But by throwing just that little bit of extra fertilizer in there, the theory behind that for me is I'm trying to shave down restoration time. My benchmark that I'm basing everything off of is right over here in section 3. It took me 6 years to make me satisfied that I don't need to add fertilizer over there other than the boron treatment I'm giving it. So section 2, which is up here, is now at year 6, and I still didn't put fertilizer out, even though in the food plot video I talked about maybe if I add 10 to 15 more pounds in there, it would help that spot out. But I have not done that. So I need to add probably about 10 pounds right there, and I'm satisfied. I don't think I'll be treating that part of the ground again. At least I hope not. But over here, and I want to make a clarity statement, in the food plot update video, I referred to this area section 1. I'm sorry, it's actually section 4. I seem to be getting more brain confused as I get older, but this is section 4. So here we have, some spots for improvement, but by throwing a little extra fertilizer in here, I'm just trying to juice up what would become rotting material just like that right there. That way when the summer or your spring and summer crops start sprouting, you're going to get just a little bit more of a nutrient edge when this stuff is rotting and breaking down. So you got to remember, when I start this, we're going to have various stages of breakdown with a blend like this. So any turnip that you see, any clover plant that you put out, those type of plants break down very rapidly. So wheat and oats, on the other hand, which is right here, tend to break down slower. So they're kind of that, in my opinion, they're kind of that mid-range decaying plant. And then to me, the last one that hangs on the longest is this cereal rye. The rye can last, it can vary quite greatly depending on how healthy your stand of rye is, but it could last 6 months or it can last more than a year. And a rye stand that's this tall probably going to last me more than a year. There'll probably be remnants of this still left when I'm ready to start planting next season. That's perfect because I want to keep as much of this out here as long as possible. That way I'm getting soil fed 365 days out of the year, or at the very least as close to that number as possible. There will be times in the winter it's just going to be downright cold. Bacteria is just not going to break it down. Your earthworms might have a shot at it, but they tend to go deeper if the soil gets really cold. And by throwing that on here, I'm actually gaining some soil temperature that way. But this is going to turn out to be a fantastic mat. The amount of biomass in here is just ridiculously thick in many places and more of what I expected in others. Eventually, places like this won't exist anymore and you're going to see it look like this. So that's one tactic that I like to do, is just experiment with things, learn how plants develop. I look for ways to take advantage of those situations, and I think by just punching a hair more fertilizer on this right before I'm ready to till tends to speed up the process. And I've already implemented that here, and I'm going to see what happens as time progresses, or even how this year's crop looks. I might notice a big difference with this amount of rotting material here. And just to give you an idea of how tall we're approaching, that post right there is right around 7 feet. And we're getting there, guys. We are getting there. So it won't be much longer. This will be one giant straw mat. So I hope a small tactic like this might take your plot to a much better level. Remember, it does not have to be a vast amount of fertilizer. You don't want to just overkill everything in your plot and just keep throwing fertilizer. Eventually, too much is too much, and you're going to burn your ground up and your plot up. But I like to try to push this, especially when it's in its first year or two, to see if I can accelerate it and save money in the long term. All right, guys, so that's all I've got. I hope you enjoy this video, and you all have a great day.